for years, I'm doing something I never expected myself to do, especially if you look back at what I just said about social media. I'm not a user-generated content girl. I love professional content. I like masters. I like great directors. I don't think everybody should be making content. I think it really should be highly edited. So coming from there, what am I doing building a social platform? And so I guess one excuse I could have is I believe I'm building an antidote to the social dilemma. As I mentioned before, the actual fact that we can all now collect our stories is not a bad thing. It's a great thing. We're building the never before seen archive of our lives. And there's a lot of knowledge, a lot of interesting stories that emerge. Now, the problem with social media is that it's just driven by the wrong system. It's driven by the algorithm that is simply designed to make us watch more so we can become more addicted, so it can sell us more. So what I'm doing now is basically creating a social media for groups, which I believe is going to be the next generation of social media. Wind back to my childhood in Soviet Union. I have seen things evolve when nobody expected them evolve. As a teenager, I have seen people believe that that system was there to stay, and a year later was no longer there. So my position is everything evolves, everything moves forward. Generally, social networks as we know them today, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, Twitter, even TikTok, are not there to stay. So I believe there's a room for the next generation, which is it's a social media for groups, a social media that's not about you as an individual, a social media that's about the common story you have with a group. And the advantage of that type of platform is that as an individual, you can navigate a number of groups or tribes or communities that are of interest to you. And when you lose interest in them, you can kind of fade them out and you can move to the next community of interest.
I'm going to challenge you on that because you said social media for groups. Now, the moment you use the word social media with me, I get something fall in front of my eyes, totally. Manipulation, addiction, and so on.
Yes.
So why don't you completely rebrand it and not call it social media?
What shall we call it?
Well, let's just explore that right now.
Let's explore it.
We can call it, your company brand is Tribo.
Exactly.
Why not talking about building tribes? Share with me what somebody like me, a CEO of a company, and I'm advising lots of other CEOs and groups and boards and so on. Mm-hmm. Share with me what is the story I tell my other boards that I talk to. Because everybody will say, well, it's like Facebook with a different face.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, it's private and it belongs to the organization. So that's the key, because Facebook, as we know, keeps our data. So there's a very, very simple way of saying, look, this is like providing your own private communication platform or social media platform for the group that you could use as a tool to build the culture. So intent-driven, purpose-driven platform, that already is a big differentiation from social media. Social media has no purpose except making us addicted.
So how are you different in terms of having a different incentive? Because you want to make money too.
So our incentive is very simple. We sell subscriptions to companies, organizations, and then the data is theirs. And it's their platform to shape the culture and to take the group to the purpose that the group has. So if it's a company, it's about motivation, it's about wishing happy birthdays, it's simple things like connecting people spontaneously instead of having them stuck in their silos. And it's very much about basically over time writing the story of the organization together and making everybody feel included in the conversations. So we could describe it as a communication platform for groups. We could drop the whole social media part. However, I do think it's really important to understand that the reason it works, whereas other community platforms or intranets don't, is that it uses familiar social media codes to make us more participative, to make us feel included.
If you go back 20 years, it's internet versus the intranet.
Yeah.
So you're effectively taken made it into an intranet,
yeah.
but you put it on steroids.
Yes,
and you put it in an environment that we understand in the modern world, and some of the tools, the social tools that are there, but also storytelling tools, networking tools, and communication tools. So you basically put an internet on steroids.
What defines social media? It's the new habits that we have formed. It's not just the technology. It's the way it tapped into our narcissism or our need to promote ourselves. And those are human habits. We come back to the beginning of this conversation. There's technology and there's a human aspect. What I believe is going to make Tribo work is two things. First, a presence of leadership in groups that actually has a purpose and intent and wants to lead the group to a certain purpose. Another human element, human factor that's really, really essential today is the fact that social media is no longer an honest environment. Social media is an environment that is, because of the wokeness, because of political correctness, because of all of the pressure on everyone, cannot distribute anything but lowest common denominator, safest, most bland and fake content that we can imagine. So outside of really funny memes, which remain very funny, outside of humor and cute cat and dog pictures, to me, the value of social media content is extremely, extremely low. So groups need private communities. Another trend is millennials, who, when you come to the intranet, the famous intranet of companies, hate it. Just like they also hate Slack, because it's just too much information. But they do love Instagram, they do love TikTok, they do love Snapchat, and the new generation even more so. So that's an important trend. We give a tool, but we also try to reach out to the habit forming elements, like the leadership that will curate, like the millennials who love to tell their stories, like the sustainability conversation that doesn't happen today in the digital form within companies. There's a lot of efforts that every company spends on being sustainable, but there is no media platform to exchange about it, unless you consider the email newsletter a media platform. So there's a lot of elements that require storytelling and media that are completely overlooked today in the world of intranets. And companies or products like Slack or Discord that are text focused cannot deliver that media quality of a conversation.